Hello, and welcome to this video lecture. It's called Modes of Playership and Types of Analysis. And it's a video lecture by me, Professor Matthew Sage. I teach in the Communication, Media, and Theater Department at Northeastern Illinois University. In this lecture, we're going to talk about the ways that we play games, whether or not we know we're playing games in these ways, and also how to analyze games as we think about them critically in the academic sphere. So, let's get started. First, let's talk about the modes of playership. So the first thing we need to talk about is that video game studies is nascent. That means that it's brand new. It's just starting, especially in the academic sphere. And so when we talk about video game studies, it's important for us to remember that it's nascent and that we're building these cultures as we go. It's not the same as, literary criticism that happened back before video games were invented. People have been reading books for thousands of years. People have been playing video games for just a few decades. And so this is a brand new academic culture. So remember, it's nascent and we're all learning as we go. Okay, so now that I have that little disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the modes of playership. These are three modes in which we as people, players, play games. It's much like the modes of viewership, which if you've had other classes with me, you'll recognize this. The modes of viewership say we view things in three different ways generally. This is just like general CMT stuff. So with the modes of playership, there's the casual, the critical, and the analytical mode of playership. This is mainly more a way of responding to something. So you play a game and then you respond in a casual way, in a critical way, or an analytical way. So let's break down those three modes of playerships here. So the first mode is casual, and it's the most basic. It's focused on the experience of playing the game, how the game feels. But actually it's more just like pure description. What do you see when you play the game? What do you hear when you play the game? What's the story? Can you tell me the narrative? The casual mode of viewership is devoid of opinions as much as possible. When you're responding casually, you don't say whether or not you think it's a good game or what's good about it. Instead, it's more just about what you see, what you feel, what you hear. The second mode is critical, and this is focused on the player's opinions of the game. Was the game good or bad? More importantly, why? I don't care if you say it's a bad game if you don't tell me why it's bad. So that why is really important in the critical mode of playership. Though the internet is full of stuff like this, think like enraged IGN reviews, there are more nuanced and considered approaches to video game criticism. Even things like game review YouTubers and streamers are included here. People who talk about why they think a game is good or bad. Now, remember, no two players share an entire critical profile. Everyone likes different games for different reasons. So your critical playership is sort of like your fingerprint. It's unique to you, and that's why we care about listening to other people's opinions, is because they're all unique. The last mode of playership is the analytical mode of playership, and it's the most complex. It's interested in what and how the game means. Yes, this is one of those college classes where we talk about what meaning is and what meaning means. So when we talk about an analytical read of a game, it's like, what does this game say about our culture or the culture that birthed the game? What does this game say about humans' relationships to fun? What does this game say about imagination? It's informed by opinion and experience, but it's supported by published academic research. And that's super important, is that you have to include published academic resource to have a sound analytical mode of playership. Most importantly, this is sort of like where the rest of our semester is going to be going. We're going to be analyzing video games. And so we want to talk about the psychology of games, the philosophy of games, the ethnography of games, the art and the science of games. And that leads us to the second part of this quick little presentation here about the types of analysis. There's 5 different types, and we're going to talk about all 5 now. The 5 types of analysis in video games are interested in the game, the player, culture, ontology, and metrics. So when we're talking about game analysis, this is the most old school, which is funny because it's also kind of the most new school. When we're analyzing something through the game type of analysis, it's interested in sort of like literary criticism and media analysis. We're interested in the game's design, its choices, and its meanings. This is when I talk about how video game studies is nascent. It's important to remember that because just because we're using these old literary techniques to talk about these video games, readers are actually players and they're having a completely different experience than one would with just a book or a film. And so game analysis is important, but it's certainly not the end-all be-all of analyzing a video game. The second type of analysis is player analysis, and this is studying how players use the game as a social space. Video games have had a social aspect since basically the beginning. Pong was a two-player game. And so this is a kind of read on video games that's sociological, ethnographic, interested in humans as subjects. Why do people play games? What do they get out of playing games? Why is everyone always so angry in a Call of Duty waiting room? Nobody knows. That's what these types of analysis are researching. The third mode is cultural analysis, and that's analyzing how the game and gaming in general interacts with wider cultural patterns. It's kind of a sociological approach that focuses on the game existing within many layers of shared human spaces, both analog and digital. So you can be a gamer in America. You can be a gamer anywhere in the world that plays Mario Kart. There's all of these different layers of video game culture, and that's what this is interested in exploring, is how those games and those cultures share each other and interact. How do we as humans share games? What results in humans sharing imaginary spaces? What happens when we coexist within this like quote unquote magic circle? Magic circle is in the reading, but very quickly let's just talk about how it's a space where we as players decide that the same rules from reality don't apply, so we exist in this like magic circle. A lot of video game theorists either love or hate this term. The fourth mode is the headiest, and that's ontology. This is a philosophical approach to the games. Researchers and thinkers consider the relationship between the rules, the fiction, and the players. What happens to the systems or games when we coexist in this magic circle? How do we as players inflect our own personalities into these algorithms? There's existential questions here about abstract relationships between players, games, and builders. Like I said, ontology is pretty heady, but just think about it this way. It's kind of like the philosophy of video games. The last type of analysis is metrics, and this is just data-driven research. It's collecting and analyzing data generated by player behavior and developer systems. It's often lacking these abstractions from like ontology and cultural studies, and instead, it's interested in quantifiable facts, numbers. So, it's important to talk about these modes of playership because this semester, you're going to be doing these modes of playership write-ups every few weeks, and you're going to be responding to games that we're playing in class together as a group. So during these modes of playership write-ups, write a paragraph for each of these modes of playership. Write a paragraph about your casual experience, describe it. Write a paragraph about your critical take, whether or not you liked the gaming experience, and most importantly, why. And then lastly, your analytical take. When you write your analytical paragraph, it should be the most developed. It should use these 5 types of analysis to analytically break down the game and think about how it's operating in these 5 analytical modes. Thanks for tuning into today's video lecture. It made ample reference to the textbook Understanding Video Games, The Essential Introduction, 4th edition by Simon Ingelfelt Nielsen, Jonas Hyde-Smith, and Susanna Pajedes Tosca. This video lecture also included original music by me, Matthew Sage.